You know, I was digging into this recently, and honestly, it is genuinely baffling. Today, we're going to unpack one of the most fascinating modern mysteries out there, how a massive gathering of the world's absolute most powerful elites can happen right out in the open and somehow fly completely under the radar.
I mean, think about this. In April 2026, 128 of the absolute most powerful people on Earth convened right at the Salamander, Washington, D.C. hotel. We're talking kings, prime ministers, AI billionaires, military commanders, the whole shebang. Yet I am willing to bet you didn't hear a single word about it on the evening news. The sheer paradox of this secret 70-second meeting happening literally steps away from the National Mall with zero press coverage, it's just mind-boggling.
And we're not talking about some casual corporate trust fall retreat here, okay? The 2026 agenda highlighted things like the future of warfare, AI and warfare, and US-NATO relations. This is an incredibly grave, defense-heavy agenda being debated behind locked doors by unelected individuals, which, makes the absolute silence around it all the more astounding. Section 1. The Rule of Secrecy.
So this level of total media blackout, it isn't some new phenomenon. Actually, it's the very foundation of how this group operates. It all kicked off back in 1954 at the Hotel de Bilderberg in the Netherlands, which, fun fact, is exactly where the group gets its name. It was basically a Cold War-era idea by Prince Bernhard to foster private elite dialogue. For decades, there was just strict media silence. Honestly, if you even talked about it, you were instantly dismissed as a total crackpot. But then, around 2014, NPR realized the internet was just exploding with theories. The secret was finally out. Fast forward to 2026, and they're holding their 70-second meeting right in Washington, D.C.
Now, the core mechanism that makes this level of secrecy possible is something called the Chatham House Rule. Basically, it dictates that participants can totally use the information discussed, but they can never, under any circumstances, reveal who said what. So functionally and legally, this rule allows them to float radical ideas, build consensus, and ultimately change policy with absolutely zero public accountability.
Section 2. Who gets the ticket?
Right, so if the future of the world is being debated in these rooms, who actually gets to attend this incredibly exclusive event? Well, I'll tell you this much. You definitely can't buy a ticket, and there are absolutely no open applications. The guest list is heavily Western-focused. We're looking at 66% coming from Europe and 34% from North America. You don't apply, you are chosen to join what the BBC has called possibly the most influential discussion network in the entire world.
But what is genuinely wild to me is the makeup of these attendees. The New York Times literally calls them the masters of the universe. Only 25% are actual politicians and government officials. The vast majority, 75%, are unelected elites. We're talking bankers, tech billionaires, military commanders, intelligence chiefs, and media owners. Just picture the head of MI6 sitting across the table from top AI CEOs. It's wild. So who exactly decides this ultimate VIP guest list? It's a group known as the Steering Committee. While about two-thirds of the attendees rotate out and change from year to year, the Steering Committee provides the continuity. They are the ultimate gatekeepers of global power here. They decide exactly who gets in the room and, crucially, what gets discussed.
Section 3. Conspiracy versus reality.
Okay, with this much power and this much secrecy, we have to impartially separate the wild shadow corridor myths from the documented truth of what actually happens. On one hand, you've got far-right extremist myths claiming they're this omnipotent global government planning secret assassinations in a new world order. But the reality, which has been confirmed by organizations like the Anti-Defamation League and Time magazine, is that Bilderberg is a legitimate, private networking entity. They don't rule the world like comic book villains. They actually do release attendee lists and topics, so it's a private event rather than a strictly secret one.
But here is the reality of the situation. Influential people discussing important topics in private undeniably shapes global policies. That informal coordination between, say, a defense tech CEO and a top military commander naturally generates consensus even if they aren't taking a formal vote.
Just listen to how Dennis Healey, a British politician and actual Bilderberg attendee, put it back in 2000. He told The Guardian, "To say we were striving for a one-world government is exaggerated, but not wholly unfair." I mean, let that sink in for a second. Even the attendees themselves admit to the massive, sweeping scope of their informal consensus building.
Section 4. Why the media ignores it.
And this brings us to what I find truly chilling. And honestly, it's the core of this whole mystery.
The 2026 paradox. You've got 128 global elites meeting in Washington, D.C., literally the seat of American democracy. Yet television networks and wire services remain entirely silent. The stark juxtaposition of this massive geopolitical summit happening just a short walk from the National Mall, with absolutely zero press passes or interviews allowed, it is astounding.
Out of all the thousands of journalists stationed in Washington, D.C., guess how many reported on it? Just one. Only one major journalist, The Guardian's Charlie Skelton, actually reported on the 2026 D.C. meeting. One.
So I have to ask you directly, why is the mainstream media completely silent? Why are the very institutions that are meant to hold power accountable completely ignoring a massive meeting about the future of warfare?
Well, it turns out the media blackout happens because media owners and editors are actually in the room. They attend Bilderberg themselves. The press bosses are literally sitting at the tables, keeping the secrets alongside the exact powerful elites they are supposed to be reporting on.
Obviously, this creates a massive conflict of interest. The presence of editors who then deliberately decline to cover the event raises incredibly legitimate questions about transparency. It is completely baffling when journalists basically become part of the unaccountable elite network they are tasked with exposing. Section 5. The Democratic Dilemma. So what does this actually mean for you, the everyday viewer, right now? Well, consider the context of that 2026 meeting to see just how urgent their informal coordination really is. They actually held this meeting 6 weeks early in April instead of late May or June. And why? Because the world was quite literally on fire. President Trump had threatened U.S. withdrawal from NATO, the U.S. was at war with Iran, the Strait of Hormuz was closed, and the Western alliance was fracturing in real time. Global energy markets were convulsing, so they rushed this meeting to coordinate their response.
And it all loops back to this vision by Dennis Healy. A single community throughout the world would be a good thing. Contrast that vision, a single community run by roughly 130 people behind closed doors, with the rest of us just sitting at home watching Netflix, completely unaware of the conversations that are literally shaping our lives.
So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If they